Welcome to the Way Back When Magical History Tour, in which we time travel backwards to Santa Barbara in 1919. I'll be your tour guide on this trip. We are here at the New Year's Eve celebration in the grand ballroom at the luxurious Potter Hotel on the beach of Santa Barbara. It's almost midnight, and the MC is giving a recap of the year 1919 just before they play Auld Lang Syne on the Victrola. Let's listen in. Good evening, ladies and gents. As we get ready to toast the entrance of 1920, let us take a few minutes to look back at the way we were in Santa Barbara in 1919 with the help of some slides from my magic lantern. January. Let's start off our reminiscing on a musical note. The Great War in Europe is behind us, and we are all thankful for that, aren't we, folks? And some of the popular songs reflected that relief with a lighter tone, such as this one titled, "Would you rather be a colonel with an eagle on your shoulder or a private with a chicken on your knee?" Remember how cold January was? Who could forget it? Although it seems like so long ago now. Thermometers showed 28 degrees. Some ponds froze, and farmers out in Galita had to light up their smudge pots. The ladies of the Santa Barbara Red Cross, such as myself, were busy handing out donuts, coffee, and cigarettes to the trainloads of young men who stopped at our train station on their way home from the war. That's me standing on the right, see? This was the month that our nation voted to end the sale of alcoholic beverages. The prohibition of alcohol will begin on January 16 of this new year, 1920. After that, people will need to find some alternate means of stimulation. February. And of course, it was tax time once again. When will this ever end? When will the government officials decide that they have enough money and that they won't need any more from us? My crystal ball tells me that in 100 years, we will still be paying taxes. It seems like most families in Santa Barbara have an automobile now. 10 years ago, who would have guessed that that would happen? I'm sure that 10 years from now, many families will have their own airplane as well. Don't you agree? I'm sure many of you subscribe to Life magazine. Do you remember this cartoon from February? It seems that young women are also adjusting to peacetime conditions. The caption reads, "Girls, they're going to demobilize us, and we've got to go back to wearing petticoats and trying to be effeminate." Another adjustment to life after the war was that construction that had stopped during the war was now starting up again, and the city held a design contest for architects to create a bigger county courthouse, which we badly need. We really have outgrown this one, don't you agree? We haven't outgrown our beloved Potter Hotel, but this month, Mr. Potter sold the hotel and it acquired a new name, the Belvedere Hotel. March. Isn't technology wonderful? I was really getting tired of standing on a chair in order to plug in my new electric iron. Now those clever electricians are beginning to put electrical outlets in the baseboards of homes. Isn't that a novel idea? Were you one of the crowd who watched this crazy guy climb up the San Marcos building on State and Anapamu using just his hands and feet? His name was Nutty Williams, remember? He did it safely, passed the hat, and collected $50. My goodness, that's more than twice what most people earn in a week. So maybe he wasn't so nutty after all. And speaking of crowds, the Paul Whiteman Jazz Band, the house band at the Potter Hotel, the Belvedere Hotel, certainly collects a crowd. My crystal ball tells me that in the next couple of decades, he will be called the king of jazz, and we can enjoy him right now in our very own city. The members of the Santa Barbara Nature Study Club had a wonderful outing this month. They visited the lovely Pierenhurst Estate on Cold Springs Road in Montecito. Mr. Bothine, the owner, was kind enough to grant them access. If you weren't able to join that group on their trip, you might remember seeing this movie called The Quest that was filmed at that estate. The movie was made way back in 1915 by the Flying A, our very own movie studio. April. Speaking of 1915, do you remember that resident who received a dead possum in the mail for his Christmas dinner? Well, this year, the post office made a new rule that live animals can be sent through the mail. So who knows what people will be sending by parcel post? Did you see that long article in the local paper this month called Modern Travelers Discovering Channel Islands' Romantic Charm? The article quoted from a 1910 book about the islands, and here's a photo from that book. I guess it shows that even a woman can catch a fish bigger than she is. We ladies are certainly coming up in this world. And how about that tank demonstration at our very own train? Tank was called a whippet, and I'm sure that it was equipment just like this that helped us win the war. The war trophy train put on the show and collected donations to help pay to bring the troops back home. Will this Polish-Russian count be the newest resident on the Mesa? And will he be building villas for the Russian aristocracy who are leaving Russia after the Tsar and his family were killed? My crystal ball tells me that only the Count and his wife will settle here on the Mesa, and that in the far future, their property will be called the Douglas Family Preserve. And do you remember when the local fishermen went on strike? It was hard on us, but even harder on stray cats that longtime fisherman Sebastian Larco normally gave scraps to. The local paper wrote, "There was no joy in Catville. Larco shook his head mournfully as he proffered a salute to this and that somewhat disgruntled tabby. But as there was no fish in the wagon, he drove on, leaving behind many dejected mothers and litters of muttering kittens." I'm sure you all recognize Larco's Fish Market on Lower State Street. My crystal ball tells me that in future, this building will be moved to Garden and Cabrillo Boulevard, where it will serve as a visitor center. Isn't it nice that this building will still be here in Santa Barbara 100 years in the future? May. And here's a building that was built just this year. Our lovely bandshell in the park near Castillo and Cabrillo has been the location of numerous concerts already. It was designed by our own hometown architect, Windsor Sewell. My crystal ball tells me that this lovely structure will still be here 100 years from now, and that the park will be called Pershing Park. Santa Barbara is a favorite spot for movie companies to film, and that includes the Channel Islands too. A young director from Los Angeles named Cecil was making a movie this month out on Santa Cruz Island, where this cave, Cueva Valdez, is found. The movie stars an up-and-coming actress named Gloria Swanson. I'm sure we'll be hearing more about her in the future. Bicycles were in the news this month. Did any of you notice them? We celebrated our first bicycle week in May. Bicycle design certainly has changed a lot since I was a girl. One wonders what they will look like in the future. Who knows? Every year, the roads are getting better and cars are getting faster. My goodness, where will it end? There were so many collisions and near misses in Montecito that the community decided to lower the speed limit. 30 miles an hour was just too dangerous, they said. So now the speed limit in Montecito is 20 miles per hour. Just remember that when you are driving there. The Nature Study Club has been on some interesting excursions in recent months, and this month they traveled to Stanley Park in the hills above Carpinteria. This park is a popular summer resort. Has anyone been there lately? June. Well, the Flying A Movie Company certainly put us on the map this month with their rooftop sign. Each of the letters is 18 feet high and 12 feet wide. It's said that even pilots 2 miles high can see the sign. 2 miles? That's more than 10,000 feet high. I didn't know airplanes could fly that high. Imagine. We women in California have been able to vote in local elections since 1911, but we still can't vote in national elections. However, this month, Congress passed the 19th Amendment and hopefully will be ratified next year. So keep your fingers crossed, ladies. I'm sure you heard about the big dance at the Recreation Center on Carrillo. Did any of you go to the dance? About 1,500 people attended the dance to welcome our boys back home from the Great War in Europe. This building is such a treasure. I hope it will be here for many years. And speaking of buildings, here's one that has been with us since we were part of Spain. The Covarrubias Adobe. This month, the Adobe was turned into an art center for local artists to hold sketching sessions. Has anyone been in this building? My crystal ball tells me that a century from now, this Adobe will still be here and will be part of the Historical Museum. Won't that be nice? First automobile in Santa Barbara? I do. That was way back in 1904, and it looked like this. When it chugged down State Street, everyone ran out to have a look. So old-fashioned, wasn't it? My, automobiles certainly have come a long way since then, haven't they? July. Now remember that back in February, the design competition for the new courthouse was announced. And this month, the winning design was published in the paper. Isn't it impressive? However, my crystal ball tells me that the courthouse will not look like this when it is built in the future. Did you go to the big parade on July 4? Almost everybody was there. And we all celebrated. And here is one stars of the parade, the old red mail coach. Some older folks can remember this vehicle rumbling down State Street and coming to a stop in front of the Arlington Hotel on Upper State Street. My crystal ball tells me that a century from now, there will be a plaque on State Street memorializing the mail coach, and that the mail coach will be in a special museum for horse-drawn vehicles. 3 nights a week, the energetic folks of Santa Barbara can put on their dancing shoes and head down to the plaza by the beach. There we can dance to the jazzy tunes of Reed's Ragtime Rascals. Some of my favorite songs are I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles and A Pretty Girl is Like a Melody. Many folks here send their washing to the Enterprise Laundry on Lower State Street, especially on hot summer days. Here's an ad from the local paper in July. My crystal ball tells me that in 100 years, the laundry building will be converted into a restaurant, and it will be called the Enterprise Fish Company. One of the Flying A movies released this month was called Tiger Lily, starring Margarita Fisher. Fisher took time out from filming to christen one of the Lockheed brothers' newest airplanes. She didn't use a bottle of champagne, however, since alcohol became illegal in California last July. August. Popular movie star Douglas Fairbanks was here this month to give some advice on home movie making to Mrs. McAdoo. She and her husband were part-time Santa Barbara residents. He had recently stepped down from being head of the U.S. Treasury. Another famous movie star who visited this month was John Barrymore. His name was in the local paper because he was pulled over for speeding by the local gendarmes. This is probably how he reacted when he was nabbed by one of Santa Barbara's finest. And who can forget the days when the Great Pacific Fleet anchored off our coast? There were 42 ships carrying more than 10,000 sailors, many of whom came ashore for a little R&R. I'm sure you all saw them, so I won't ask for a show of hands. Many of the sailors wanted to tour the studio grounds of our Flying A, but the studio that normally welcomed visitors at any time decided to restrict visitors to between the hours of 4 and 5 o'clock because there were just too many people dropping by. Well, here's something that didn't happen when Grandma was a girl, and it certainly didn't happen when I was a girl. A group of ladies chartered a plane so that they could go fishing out on the channel. Women can do so many things these days. September. And here's another thing that the modern girls are doing these days: showing their ankles without stockings. It started up in San Francisco, and the local paper reported, when girls minus stockings first appeared in San Francisco, streetcars were temporarily stalled. Many masculine necks performed contortions, and the next day gave their owners twinges. Santa Barbara is yet to be initiated. Tisk, tisk, what next, you ask? Well, here's something that Grandma could remember when she was a girl. Mules pulling our streetcars. An old timer stopped in Santa Barbara this month and reminisced about the good old days here. Thank goodness we have had electrified streetcars since 1896. Did you notice this picture in the paper in September? This was the first photo of a wanted criminal that was sent by telegraph. I don't know how they do this. Now that the war is over, people are doing fun things in the air, such as a Santa Barbara man who convinced his barber to go up in the Lockheed's airplane with him and give him a shave in the air. And if you think that was wild, how about the young couple who talked their minister into going aloft with them to perform a marriage ceremony 1,000 feet above the ground? October. And remember this visit from this distinguished gentleman? I'm sure you all know that he is King Albert of Belgium, who was here for several days this month with his Queen Elizabeth. I believe they were the first royal couple to visit Santa Barbara, and we certainly gave them a royal welcome. They planted some sequoia trees in Alameda Park. My crystal ball tells me that a couple of these trees will still be alive 100 years from now. October was also the month that the first Boy Scout troop was founded in Santa Barbara. Anyone here a member of the Scouts? October was also the month when we start seeing rain or storms. People are always looking for signs that storms are coming. And one judge here swears that he has a frog that comes to his front door when a storm is imminent. But we don't rely on frogs to tell us the time. Now we can get the accurate time from the Naval Observatory clock at the Chamber of Commerce. It's regulated by telegraph signals, and you can call them and they will tell you the correct time. Isn't that wonderful? Did you notice the big German cannon that appeared on the property of the post office this month? We received it as an award for helping to pay off the national war debt. My crystal ball tells me that this cannon will not be here in 100 years, and also that our post office will be used as an art museum. Can you picture that? November. Here's a Santa Barbara woman that we can all be proud of. Her name is Anna L. Fisher. She was in the news this month when she was appointed captain of the Arabian Cavalry to acknowledge her services as a Red Cross leader in Damascus, Syria. Although the war is over, she has decided that she will stay there as long as she is needed. Another adobe is being repurposed this year. The Oreña adobe at 27 East de la Guerra is being converted from a home to an art studio. And as some of you old timers probably remember, in the old days, Gaspar Oreña, who built the house, had little faith in banks. At one time, he buried a sack of gold dust in the backyard. When he moved, he dug up his gold and found that the sack had rotted away and the gold dust mixed with the dirt. It was necessary to pan out several yards of earth to be sure that he got back all of his buried treasure. And speaking of treasures, we had a musical treasure here this month The great orchestra leader, John Philip Sousa, and his band played here this month at the Belvedere Hotel, which used to be called the Potter Hotel. We could all use a good laugh sometimes, and I'm sure you are all happy to see a new comic strip in the local paper called Gasoline Alley. Has everyone seen it? Now here's a gentleman whose name was finally put on our map this year, the explorer Juan. And the lovely road that parallels the is now called Cabrillo Boulevard. Of course, it will take a while to get used to the new name. Many people are still saying East Boulevard or West Boulevard, but sooner or later we will remember. December. Well, our year certainly ended with a bang. Literally, a wanted man was cornered by the police in our very own post office when he refused to surrender and ran away through the crowd of people mailing Christmas packages. The police shot at him several times. He collapsed on the steps outside the post office and died a few days later. Fortunately, no one else was seriously injured. As I mentioned earlier, my crystal ball tells me that our post office will be an art museum someday. Remember that the Potter Hotel became the Belvedere Hotel back in February. And now in December, the hotel was renamed the Ambassador Hotel. My crystal ball tells me that there will be an Ambassador Park on the west part of Cabrillo Boulevard. Won't that be nice? And speaking of changes in our cityscape, this lovely building has been remodeled by the Henry Levy Shoe Store. Very attractive building, don't you agree? My crystal ball tells me that this building will still be here 100 years from now and will look very much like this. And we'll finish our reminiscing with the photo of King Albert of Belgium about to take a tour with the Lockheeds. And here he is admiring an aerial camera that was developed by the clever folks at the Flying A. Now I see from the clock on the wall that it's midnight. The band members are standing up and ready to play Auld Lang Syne on the Victrola. Let's all sing along with them. Thank you very much, everybody.